I never really wanted to do a video on Aron Ra because, in my opinion, he is a verified liar and a blowhard. But I also want to have at least one video dedicated to every major atheist YouTuber out there. And with over 300K subscribers, Aron Ra is definitely a major voice out there.
I won't deny that I could be fairly described as a blowhard, but how am I a verified liar? How was that verified? Because I never lied in any of my videos. Or if this is just some rando's opinion, which he already admitted that it is, then by definition, it was not verified. And yet he said it was. Is he just another religious liar lying about me lying? Because I've noticed that my Christian critics consistently ignore and violate their own ninth commandment by bearing false witness against their neighbors, everyone they don't like, especially when they don't even know what they're talking about, which they usually don't, and they certainly don't here. Now, I don't care about this person, this fake data, whoever it is. They have a fake name, fake face, fake voice, and only 100 some odd subscribers. They're just another anonymous internet nobody, and for me to respond at all feels like punching down, unless I could help this person. And I might, without hurting them, since their identity is entirely concealed. They'll be able to weather this and come out a better person for it. Someone sent me a private message asking that I rebut this video, otherwise I would have ignored it. But I'm not going to address and correct the whole stupid thing, wherein faulty data expresses their opinion as if it's a fact, which is to lie. And they dismiss and even admittedly ignore the facts as if they're mere opinion, which is another way to lie, by omission. It really seems as if the believers define truth as whatever lies they want to believe, and that they define lies as whatever truths they want to reject. So I'm only going to use this video as a springboard to make a point.
In his latest video, he apparently interviews Satan, which seems like someone he is on speaking terms with already.
There is no Satan. Satanists, like the Satanic Temple and the original Church of Satan, are entirely atheist. They do not believe in a literal Satan. They don't believe in anything, not even faith, which both groups reject as dishonest. Satan is just a symbolic character, like Uncle Sam was back in the days of World War II. The character of Satan is used by some atheists to represent reason against the autodeceptive blindness of faith.
But even though it's only a minute long, I have no interest in that. Instead, I am here to refute that other video, 10 scientific facts misunderstood in the Bible. The Bible is completely accurate in everything it mentions, so I suspect Aron Ra will be begging the question a lot, and most likely taking a hyper-literal reading of some of the passages in order to say they are wrong.
So if we read them literally, then they're wrong. That means that the Bible is literally wrong. But what does hyper-literal mean? We either read it literally or we read it figuratively, perhaps metaphorically. But my contention has always been against biblical literalists, those foolish enough to say that the Bible is completely accurate in everything it mentions, no matter how obviously false and ridiculous that mention is. So fake data is a hypocrite when he criticizes me for reading it literally while admitting that they read it literally too. The Bible is not completely accurate on anything it mentions. Yeah, many times I've pointed out that there is much of the Bible that can only be interpreted figuratively. I even cite Christian scholars who lament how biblical literalism robs the scriptures of their real meaning. Yet fake data criticizes me for agreeing with them that some of the Bible is obviously metaphorical and that it would be nothing but nonsense otherwise. So his game is heads I win, tails you lose. In my first book, I complained many times about how the circular assumptions of the question-begging fallacy are ubiquitous in every religious faith. This is not a problem that I have. Yet fake data and other believers, too, like to accuse me of every problem they have that I will not share, and projecting onto me as if their every accusation is a confession, arguing with me as if they are me arguing against themselves. But we are not the same. This is not one faith versus another. This is reason versus faith. This is fact versus fantasy.
Okay, let us see what his 10 facts are. Well, rather than try and react, I just took the transcript and will respond section by section. So in the intro, he just calls Ray Comfort a liar, which is, of course, very ironic.
No, it isn't, because I don't lie, and he has made a multi-million-dollar career out of lying constantly.
And presumably, he spends the rest of the video trying to prove that.
Presumably? I've spent the rest of that video proving that Ray is a liar. In that video, and in my most recent video too, I show how the things that Ray says are demonstrably false and how he should know better because he's been corrected so many times. He knows that no professor or textbook teaching evolution ever said the things that Ray says they do. If false data here even admitted a couple of times where I made my point, where Ray was not entirely honest, or where he oversold his point by embellishment or exaggeration. So fake data knows that I'm right about Ray Comfort. I also offered a challenge to anyone following Ray Comfort. Show me one thing that he, or indeed any professional creationist, ever said that either contradicts evolution or is supportive of God or creation, and that is also actually factually correct. Now, while I can show a great many facts in evidence for evolution and against God, or against God, there is not one actual fact for creation or against evolution. I say this because in my extensive experience of arguing with believers daily for decades, I have never seen one example of either one. Instead, every argument either doesn't really challenge evolution or promote creation like the believers thought that it would, or if it does, then it's only a false assumption or misinformation. It's not even real. So I suspect that all fake data has is fake data.
But he does so by presuming his interpretation is the correct one, and that if you disagree, then you must be lying.
Remember that false data here just said that I presumably do this by presuming. So he's presuming that I presume, which I didn't do, and he shouldn't have presumed that I did. Amusingly, Merriam-Webster says that the difference between an assumption and presumption is that the presumption implies more confidence or evidence-backed reasoning, which in my case would be correct, except for the implication of the prefix pre. Because I don't walk into any study with a set conclusion already. I need to learn about it first to make up my mind. Ever since I was 8 years old, I expressed the opinion that first impressions are often wrong because they're based on prejudice. Prejudging something based on biased assumptions rather than actual factual data. Creationists take the opposite approach, deciding, for example, that they're going to believe the Bible regardless what it says, even before they read it. So they don't even know what it's going to say, but they're determined to believe it anyway. That is unreasonable. So faulty data is again describing himself here and other creationists too. They presume that their interpretation is infallible, divinely inspired, and that if I have and show good reason to differ from them, then my truth is just lies, and only their lies are true, because they cannot and must not objectively evaluate any evidence or reason to the contrary of their required belief. If they do, then they risk the threat of a fate worse than death, which is obviously only imaginary. But, and this is important, I know better than to accuse someone of lying until or unless I can immediately show both that what they said was wrong and that they knew it was wrong when they said it anyway, with apparent intent to deceive, or that they said something is true when there is no way they could have known whether it is true or false. Because, as Abraham Lincoln pointed out, it is an established maxim in morals that he who makes an assertion without knowing whether it is true or false is guilty of falsehood, and the accidental truth of the assertion does not justify or excuse him. So, citing facts that are not facts and pretending to know things you don't know are both ways of lying. Thus, presenting baseless speculation as if it was a matter of fact is dishonest. Yet, that is what every religious faith does. That's what faith is all about, pretending to know things no one even can know. You can believe whatever you want. That's your right. But the moment you say that it's not just a belief, when you assert it as fact, now you've got a burden of proof to show that it's true. Otherwise, it's not true, and you're guilty of falsehood. And this is ironic because I'm talking to the embodiment of false data, but you can cite false data and not be lying if you didn't know that the data was false. You need to be careful about that because it doesn't mean you're innocent. I've made that mistake a few times. Said things that I thought were true, or cited information that proved to be invalid, or what have you. You have to be careful about that because every time that that's happened, my own side of the argument, other atheists and so forth, have bashed me for it. Because in science or history or any academic study, accuracy and accountability are paramount, where neither of those things seem to matter at all in religion. Because I've seen that when you correct creationists, they will not adjust. They don't care what the truth is. They will just keep going on repeating the same errors as if no one ever said anything. So it's not just an honest mistake anymore. It's no longer forgivable. Now it's a lie.
The video is a response to a video by Ray Comfort, and it should come as no surprise to anyone who has seen Aaron Ra before that he does not link to the original video in his description.
There are several times when I actually have done that, but I see no need to bring traffic to a con artist like Banana Man. And likewise, I see no reason to bring abuse to the channel of fake data, the wannabe nobody. So I won't include the link to his video here either.
Comfort's video is about 10 scientific facts found in the Bible, and the first one given is that the book of Job says that the earth hangs on nothing, which is a good place to start. Ra starts by saying the book of Job is not as old as Comfort says, stating it is only 500 years older than the time of Christ, which is just wrong.
How would you know if it's just wrong? Because what I actually said was the scholarly opinion is that the book of Job is 1,000 years younger than Ray Comfort says it is. That's not my opinion, but that of scholars, the people with the most and best information to work with. They know more than you or I do. They know something you don't.
I don't know what scholars Ra is referring to make this claim, but it is common knowledge that Job is the oldest book in the Bible, and Genesis was written at least 1,200 years before Christ.
Actually, no. If I remember correctly, the scholarly opinion is that Genesis is not even as old as Job, that it too comes in the form that we now know only in about the 4th or 5th century BCE. Don't forget that nearly 3/4 of all Christian high school students lose their faith when they go to college. This applies even when they go into seminary, intending initially to join the ministry. More than half of them change their minds before they graduate, because the more you know about comparative religions of ancient history and the real origins of the Bible, the less you believe.
If I were as dishonest as Ra, this is where I would call Ra a liar. But unlike him, I am willing to give the benefit of the doubt that there is some scholar out there who makes this claim.
Unlike me, he says, fake data is ready to call me dishonest and a verified liar, even when he can't show that anything I said was even wrong, much less that I ever said anything with intent to deceive. He says that unlike me, he's willing to give the benefit of the doubt, but that is exactly like me. Whenever there's been any room for doubt, I have always granted that benefit, which he did not afford to me, because he's already that I'm dishonest simply because his interpretations must be right, and that anyone who disagrees with him is lying. However, in this case, it's not just some scholar, but apparently most of them. I host a weekly Bible study, wherein my panel includes a number of serious Bible students, like my friend Lauren Schufa, who says that the oldest books of the Bible are probably Amos and Hosea, and that even they only date to about the 8th century BCE. Other consultants occasionally include Dr. Kip Davis, who said that most scholars date Job to around the Persian period, accepting that it is probably post-exilic on the basis of language, concepts, and theology. And Dr. Josh Bowen, a renowned expert who says that the book of Job is generally thought to date to between the 7th and 2nd centuries BCE. And finally, a rising star in the study of history of Christian theology, Chris Hansen, provided some references, saying that I don't know of a single biblical scholar who actually thinks that Job is the oldest book of the Bible. The vast majority would date it to the 8th century BCE or later, with the recent trend being the Persian era, i.e. 6th century BCE or after. They go on to say that there is no competent or credible Bible scholar who would date it to 1500 BCE, just for the simple reason that Hebrew did not exist in 1500 BCE, at least as far as we know. Their citations include Chunlong Sao and Naphtali Tursanai, who both have Job dating to the late 6th or 5th century BCE, while Marvin Pope and David Kleins agree that the formation of the book of Job is vague but occurred somewhere between the 7th and 3rd century BCE, while other scholars specify that Persian or Hellenistic eras, and most scholars now generally consider Job to be post-exilic.
And Ra is just extremely gullible.
Of course. If all the experts in theological seminary and archaeology and ancient languages all say that it's 2,500 years old, but some willfully ignorant rando who never studied anything says that it's 1,000 years older than it can be, then I'm gullible for considering the consensus of informed opinions over the unsupported assertions of blindly credulous know-nothings. Appreciate that a young earth creationist who believes in talking snakes and a man who walks on water and a magical creation by incantation just called me gullible when he believes all of this just because he was told to and not for any good reason. Yet he says I'm the gullible one. The guy criticizing my knowledge of the Bible also believes that the Pentateuch was written by Moses, an apparently mythical man who never existed. The guy criticizing my gullibility actually believes in Noah's Ark, which we know never happened because we can prove that it didn't. Fake Data then went on to do exactly what he presumed I would do. He presumes that his own interpretation is the correct one, and then anyone who disagrees with that must be lying, even if they're experts in the field. He doesn't know what the firmament is, but he assumes that I don't know either, and neither does anyone else. And if you show sources, he won't look at them. He rests entirely on his own interpretation, makes up biases and motivations for me that I never had, because he jumps to conclusions and runs with assumptions where I do not. He also said that he is quite sure that I'm aware that I'm wrong and that he's right. No, I'm pretty confident that I can prove otherwise. Don't tell me what you think I know when I know better than you do. He made a big deal about one thing that he thought was a lie on my part, where I pointed out that before the Bible was written, every culture around the world already knew that if you bleed too much, you will die. We didn't need the Bible to say that the life of the flesh is in the blood. Yet, George Washington's doctors were dumb enough to bleed that man to death, as if that means what Fake Data imagines, that no one knew that it was possible to bleed to death before the Bible said so. But remember that creationists commonly claim that all Americans in those days were Bible-believing Christians. And if that was true, then Washington's leech doctors didn't know any better than that even after having read the Bible. So did the Bible fail to inform them? Was it not clear enough? Whose fault is that? Fake Data did catch me in one error, though. There was a point when I spoke as if the book of Daniel and the Gospel of Matthew were roughly contemporary. I said they were both younger than Eratosthenes, which is correct, and it made my point, but Daniel is reportedly from 164 BCE, not CE, like Matthew is. So I apparently misread that. Fair point. Beyond that, Fake Data complains that I don't cite evidence, but he also admitted that he won't look at the evidence I did cite. Then he says stupid things like evolution is a fairy tale. I guess if you make believe in a fairy tale already, and you know how indefensible that is, then the only thing you can do is the tu quo qui fallacy of pretending that your opponent is just as dumb as you are with all the exact same weaknesses, even though that is not the case in this case, not at all. But it doesn't realize that because false data only listens to false data. He accused me of committing a genetic fallacy by dismissing research because it was done according to an agenda by admittedly biased researchers who have already confessed that they will automatically reject any and all evidence that contradicts them. And Fake Data even admitted that he'll ignore the evidence as well. And my favorite of all of his criticisms of me is when Ray Comfort claimed that the Bible explained how to treat diseases, and I said, no, it doesn't. And Fake Data unwittingly agreed with me that the Bible is not the medical textbook that Ray Comfort made it out to be, which was my point. And he ends by praising my interpretation of Job's behemoth as referring to an elephant, not a dinosaur. But sadly, he also thought that primitive people who lived with elephants would never have cut a dead one open to look inside it. That's just not realistic. So, fake data, whoever you are, you have a lot to learn on every relevant topic that was brought up here. If you want to learn about the Bible, tune into my show on Saturday mornings at noon Eastern, 9 Central. If you want to learn about evolution, or at least quit lying to yourself about it, catch any of my videos on taxonomy, or talk to me directly. I can help you so that you can know for certain why you are wrong about this and quit embarrassing yourself publicly. But for right now, learn not to hate people just because they disagree with you. Find out why they disagree with you. What was the wisdom that led them beyond where you still are? Their reasons just might be better than yours. And from what I've seen of you so far, our reasons will be better than yours. At least we have reasons. Don't hate so much. The only thing that I hate is injustice. That includes lies, and that means religion. Religion is all about asserting baseless speculation as if it was a matter of fact, pretending to know things no one even can know. And you should know already that you should not say that something is true until or unless you can show the truth of it, the evidence backing that conclusion exclusively. I can do that for evolution, but you cannot do that for the Bible, which is effectively also your God. And this should be the main point of the whole video. If the truth really matters to you, then you wouldn't say that anything is true unless you can show the truth of it. Until then, how would you even know whether it is true before you claim that it is? That ought to matter if honesty is important to you at all. And if you dare accuse someone of lying, but you can't show sufficient reason to suspect deception, or worse, if you couldn't get to step 2 because you couldn't even get to step 1, if you accuse someone of lying and it turns out that what they said wasn't even wrong, like what happened this time, then you lose. You're the liar.